Welcome to part 2 of The Truth About Autism and Tylenol. In part 1, we saw that there is a unanimous consensus of every national medical authority in the world, including the FDA in the US, and that the president has a different opinion. Today, we're focusing on the reaction of various groups who were upset about this announcement. Again, in a purely objective sense, we want to know first who they are, and second, what are they themselves saying about why they're upset. The three groups in question, you can probably already guess, are doctors, mothers, and of course, the autistic community. And actually, on further reflection, there is a fourth massive group of people who are arguably the most negatively affected by this announcement, but we'll get to that. First things first. Hi everyone, Paul Micallef here from Autism from the Inside. I make weekly videos sharing the human side of autism, so make sure you hit subscribe to get the latest content. So let's jump straight into it. Number one, the first group of people who are very upset at this announcement, doctors. Now, realistically, you could probably extend that to scientists, researchers, healthcare professionals. As we saw in part 1, there was a unanimous outcry from national medical authorities around the world, releasing urgent statements in an effort to correct misinformation. So if you haven't already seen part 1, please watch it first, as getting the facts straight helps a lot when putting these reactions into context. Today, however, we're focusing on GPs, general practitioners, your local doctor who sees a dozen or more patients a day at the clinic. Their job is to safeguard the health of their patients and give sound medical advice. So when the president says,
"I'm not a doctor, but I'm giving my opinion,"
and proceeds to give advice contrary to that, it makes their job much more difficult. In short, it undermines their authority. In this response video by Dr. Mike, he explains how now he, as a doctor, can't give medical advice without it sounding political. It kind of makes sense. Disagreeing with the president, I don't like what he said. That sounds political, right? So how then do doctors give medical advice without it being political when doing so directly contradicts what the president said? How do they calm the natural fear response in their patients? The president said Tylenol causes autism, don't take it. Their job is suddenly so much more difficult, and it's their patients that suffer. The American Psychological Association summarizes this sentiment pretty well. In their words, promoting unsupported scientific theories risks fueling stigma, undermines public trust, and distracts from real scientific progress. So, doctors, not happy. Next, we have mothers.
There's no downside to doing, other than a mother will have to, as I say, tough it out a little bit. Don't take Tylenol. When you have your baby, don't give your baby Tylenol at all.
Why would mothers be upset by this? One word, blame. The list of do's and don'ts while you're pregnant is already astronomical. The implication being, if you don't follow this advice, then it's your own fault. You didn't tough it out, and now you're reaping what you sowed. So instead of helping you, I'm going to tell you what you did wrong so that you can do better next time. Oh, you're struggling? It's because you fed your child the wrong food, let them have too much screen time, didn't teach them proper boundaries, gave them perfectly safe over-the-counter medication. Blaming mothers is not a new phenomenon, especially when it comes to autism. It goes right back to the refrigerator mother theory of the mid-20th century. The outcry from many women is, "We are sick of it." Here's a good example from an article by Leticia Undrak. What angers and saddens me the most is thinking about all the mothers out there wondering, did I cause my child's autism by taking an over-the-counter medicine? Despite knowing the research, she said, I still found myself thinking back to every headache, every fever, every time I took pain relief during my pregnancy. Like countless mothers, I had been careful. No alcohol, limited caffeine, religiously taking prenatal vitamins. But pain relief isn't sushi. It's not a luxury or even a choice. It's basic healthcare. Pregnancy-safe pain relief is the right and safest choice. So stop blaming mothers for making good and sensible decisions. She's obviously quite angry. This is textbook harmful. Your child is having a meltdown in the supermarket, you're in crisis mode, trying to manage the situation, and someone says, you should have done a better job as a parent. Thank you, not helpful. And perhaps the most insulting part is that the person doing the blaming is convinced that they're being helpful, and may even get angry at you for not accepting their unsolicited advice. and then implying that the situation is your own fault because you didn't listen to their advice. Again, I hope I'm accurately representing the views of Leticia and others who have spoken out publicly about this. There are many articles out there. I'll leave a link to a few of them below. But we're not done yet. We haven't gotten to the main group that probably comes to mind, the autistic community.
Today, we're delighted to be joined by America's top medical and public health professionals as we announce historic steps to confront the crisis of autism. Horrible, horrible crisis.
Okay. Wow, when you start a speech like that, what could go wrong? Finally, we come to common reactions from within the autistic community. Actually, not finally, because there's a fourth group I want to mention, so make sure you stick around for that. Okay, where to start? Why might the autistic community be upset by being referred to as
horrible, horrible crisis?
Did you notice the part in the speech where he referred to the celebrations of Autistic Pride Day earlier this year? Oh, actually, for some reason they didn't quite make the final cut. Okay, in all seriousness, let's get down to business. I want to keep this very simple. I'm not going to argue any facts. They are irrelevant, and you'll see why in a minute. You may have heard the phrase, nothing about us without us. It's used quite a bit by disability advocacy groups worldwide. So let me ask you then, in all seriousness, did you notice any mention of autistic people or the autistic community in this address? We are upset for two reasons. First, we are being ignored as if we don't exist. Second, and this is even more offensive, the narrative is that we should not exist.
Finally, to help reach the ultimate goal of ending the autism fever, it'd be a lot easier if it didn't happen in the first place.
This is not a joke. This is not a drill. A very influential man is telling the world that our very existence is a tragedy and that we should be prevented from existing. Alarm bells, anyone? You may notice that this has nothing whatsoever to do with Tylenol. In fact, there's nothing new here at all. It's the same old autism tragedy epidemic narrative promoting patently inaccurate stereotypes from a time where autism was believed to be only a childhood condition. This radically changed about 40 years ago when Temple Grandin came on the scene. 40 years ago. The whole mainstream world has moved on from then. It's not a secret. If you want proof that autistic adults exist, look at TikTok. We're not hiding anymore. Here's a good example, a statement from the American Psychological Association. The administration's characterization of autistic individuals promotes harmful stereotypes that do not reflect the diverse experiences, capabilities, and contributions of people on the autism spectrum. Such rhetoric can stigmatize autistic people and their families while diverting attention and resources from evidence-based supports and services. So really, there's nothing new here. It has nothing to do with Tylenol. And moreover, in a sense, the very question, does Tylenol cause autism, can be considered offensive. How can a question be offensive? Now there is a very good question. A question can be offensive when it carries with it an offensive statement. Let me give you an example. What's wrong with you? It's a question, but it's really a statement. So in that sense, the question, does Tylenol cause autism, is a misdirection. It's a statement in disguise, and I reject the inherent assumptions implicit in the question. Firstly, autism does not have one cause. You might as well ask, what's the cause of left-handedness? It's more complex than that. Plus, if there's one thing we do know, it's that autism runs in families. This is a big reason why so many adults are suddenly discovering their own autism. Parents get their child diagnosed and then say, hang on a minute, I did all of those things. Perhaps, unsurprisingly, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The second assumption implicit in the does Tylenol cause autism question is much more sinister. It implies that if we knew the cause, we would prevent it from happening. But as we saw above, if autism runs in families, then preventing autism has a bit of a different flavor now, doesn't it? Eugenics isn't the same thing as genocide, but there's a good reason the practice has fallen out of favor. All that aside though, let's step back a bit. The overarching complaint is that we are being ignored. Please listen to us. Please acknowledge our existence. Please don't try to eradicate us. Please instead support us to be included in society. If I had to name one thing that all autism advocates are very strong on, it's calling for inclusion. We want to be included. Okay, Still with me? We've covered a lot, and I know it's a big topic, so we've tried not to get lost in the detail. This might need a part 3, but before we wrap up today, there are 2 more important things I want to cover briefly. There's the 4th group I mentioned, and statistically, you're in it. And also, at a high level, how can we productively respond to an announcement like this? To be clear, this part from now on is firmly my opinion, so if you don't want my opinion, then feel free to click away now. The 4th massive group of people that is severely negatively affected by this announcement, who happen to be the vast majority of people watching this YouTube channel, yep, you guessed it, Americans. And yes, I mean all of you, without exception, seem to be significantly negatively affected. I mean, I'd be curious if you disagree, but it seems obvious to me that statements like this are divisive in society, and that hurts everyone. It causes people to take sides. It turns an everyday over-the-counter health situation into a partisan political decision. It muddies the water so that no one can hear each other clearly. Yes, I know that's a mixed metaphor. If you don't like the announcement, your opinion and genuine concern is written off and ignored as that just must be your political bias. And worse, supporters of the administration are cut off from the rest of the world. For someone who wants to support the president, it means turning their back on the rest of the world. That is inherently disconnecting and isolating. The rest of the world must be wrong. You can't trust them. They're out to get you. You're on your own now. The president is your only friend. Is there another way to see this situation? If I'm missing something, please let me know. Because to me, it seems pretty obvious that in this kind of situation, everyone feels misheard, misunderstood, dismissed. So how can we respond? I actually have a very simple strategy. I actually wrote a LinkedIn post on this recently. Don't argue with words, be a presence. The mere existence of autistic adults contradicts outdated autism narratives. In other words, when we as a community come together and flourish, that is the most powerful, incontrovertible evidence against the autism is a tragedy narrative. This comes back to something you're probably sick of hearing me say, which is that we need to share autistic lived experience. This has been my mission for over 10 years now. And I'm happy to report that the tidal wave of lived experience available in the public domain is growing exponentially every day. We don't need to say, hey, can you please be more careful about the facts?
Is that a correct statement, by the way? I'm not so careful with what I say.
We are the facts. We are the evidence. It's our story that's gaining momentum, our lives that are changing the narrative. So keep doing what you're doing, share your experience, support each other, build each other up. There are no enemies here, only people who have yet to meet you and yet to hear your story. Anyway, that's my opinion. We don't need arguments, we need lived experience. That's a brief overview anyway. For those interested, I'll make a part 3 with some more detail on what that means and how to actually implement that in an effective way. I'll also share a powerful analysis technique when listening to announcements like this and other similar rhetoric. And this one comes with a warning, actually. Once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. It's a bit advanced, so definitely not for everyone. But if you want to know how to cut straight to the heart of a message, tune in next week, if you're up for that. Like I said, it's not for everyone. But for those who can follow, it's a life-changing perspective. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for sticking around. If you like this content, please support me for $1 a week on Patreon. I know you're used to getting content for free, but $1 a week is almost free, and contributing any non-zero amount makes a massive difference. So I'd better leave it there. As usual, I'm curious to hear what you thought of this video in the comments, and I'll see you next week for part 3. Bye.